The paper hit the table. Benjamin, billionaire, famous CEO of Bentech, uncapped a pen, scribbled his signature, and pushed the sheet toward the waitress. "If you can sing my favorite song," he said loudly so the whole restaurant could hear, "you become the CEO of Bentech. Right here, right now." His friends burst into laughter. Phones lifted. The whole Midpoint restaurant turned. Someone gasped. The waitress, Amara, stood with a tray of fresh juices. Her hands were steady, but her heart kicked against her ribs. The paper lay between them like a dare. A space at the bottom waited for her name. Benjamin leaned back, a smug smile playing on his face. "It's a song from the 80 seconds, he added, winking at his friends. "I'll even say the first line. If you can sing it to the end, and sing it well, you take my seat. Witnesses, please, let Lagos hear." He spoke the opening words of the old song. His friends clapped. A few people whistled. Someone recorded from the doorway. The chandelier above them trembled a little, as if even the light wanted to see what would happen. Amara did not blink. She set the tray down gently on the table, next to the glasses of juice and the shining forks. She breathed in, slow. The smell of pepper soup and suya drifted from the kitchen. The air felt warm, buzzing, like wires inside a wall. Her eyes lifted to Benjamin's. The man who humiliated waitresses. The man who used people as props. The man who thought power was a toy. "Deal?" he said, tapping the paper. "Sign if you can sing." And then, 2 hours earlier, the day had been simple. Morning light spread across Lagos like melted gold. Danfo buses danced through traffic. Horns spoke in loud voices. On the island, in the heart of the city, Midpoint Restaurant opened its glass doors to the rush of noon. Amara tied her white cap and checked table numbers. Her shoes were clean, but the leather had cracks. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and smiled at herself in the small mirror by the staff door. "You will be okay," she whispered. "Just breathe." Amara was 27, dark-skinned, tall, and graceful. She had the kind of face that made people soften. She was an orphan who had taught herself how to survive. She took night classes, shared one room with 2 friends, and studied accounting until her eyes burned. She had graduated with first class. She had sent hundreds of emails for jobs that never came. No uncle to call, no auntie to recommend. The city did not always see people like her, so she worked here, serving food with dignity, saving money in a small envelope, and singing to herself when the kitchen got too loud. Her mother had taught her old songs when she was a child, songs from tapes that clicked and whirred, songs that smelled like Sunday rice and new rain. Her mother used to say, "When the world wants to shame you, sing, let your voice remind you who you are." By noon, the restaurant flowed with sound cutlery, laughter, the hiss of the grill. Amara moved like clockwork. Table 6, extra napkins. Table 9, no onions. Table 12, birthday cake hidden in the back. Then the door opened, and the weather in the room changed. A tall man in a navy blue kaftan walked in with 3 friends in sharp suits. A red cap sat on his head, proud and bright. A polished Bentley waited outside near the curb, as if guarding a king. People looked up, whispering. Phones came out again. "Benjamin." Some smiled, some frowned, some shook their heads. Everyone knew the stories, how he mocked servers, how he made fun of accents, how he turned kindness into entertainment. The news blogs loved him. He loved it back. "Good afternoon, sirs," Amara said, steady and polite. "Welcome." Benjamin's eyes slid over her, then past her, like she was part of the furniture. "Private corner," he told the host. "And make it quick." The table shone. The city glowed beyond the glass windows. Amara came with menus and water. Benjamin's voice carried, "You know what I love about this place?" He told his friends, "It gives me a stage." They laughed. He laughed too light, sharp, like a knife tapping glass. The first high of the afternoon arrived fast. A plate broke in the kitchen. Clatter, shout, silence, then normal sound again. Amara didn't flinch. She wrote down orders. She remembered every detail. No pepper for one, extra spice for another, 1 glass of pineapple juice, 2 orange, 1 mixed. Benjamin watched her. A thin smile curved his mouth, like he had picked his next game. "Waitress," he said when she came back with the tray. "Let's have some fun." His friends turned, grinning. One of them started recording. Amara put the tray down. Sir? People online think I'm too serious, Benjamin said, spreading his hands. Let us do a challenge. These gentlemen are my witnesses, and everyone else in this room. He stood a little, raising his voice with easy confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, a quick show. The restaurant quieted. Forks paused in mid-air. I am Benjamin Okonkwo, he announced, CEO of Bentech. If this waitress can sing my favorite song perfectly, I will make her the CEO today. Gasps, nervous giggles, a few claps. A woman near the bar shook her head, smiling like she could not believe the madness. Amara's chest tightened, but her face stayed calm. She glanced at the door, her way out, then back to the table, her way through. Benjamin penned his name on the paper with a flourish, like a magician. He left a space at the bottom for hers. He looked up at her, eyes bright with pride and mischief. It's from the 80s, he said. You won't know it. But I am fair, so I'll say the first line. He spoke the words. The line was like a key in a lock inside Amara's mind. She had heard that line before, by a window, on a hot afternoon, a radio with a shaky antenna. Her mother humming along, tapping a spoon on a pot. The smell of stew, the sound of rain. Her mother's voice, clear, warm, sure, teaching her how the melody rose and fell like waves. A low moment followed, quiet and stretched, like the world was holding its breath. Benjamin's friends chuckled. She can't sing, one said. Collect your paper back. Benjamin grinned wider. Sign if you dare, he said softly to Amara. Or walk away. Amara heard other sounds now small, sharp, invisible. The sound of rent coming due. The sound of all the, we regret to inform you, emails. The sound of a little girl's promise to a dying mother. I will not break. Her fingers stopped shaking. She picked up the paper. She read the line that said, I, Benjamin Okonkwo, agree. She checked the date. She checked the witness's line. She looked him straight in the eyes. Are you sure? She asked. Benjamin lifted his chin. Very. Amara set the paper down. Then she did something nobody expected. She removed the tray from the table so nothing would fall. She took one clean step back into the open space. She placed her hand over her chest to feel her breath. She closed her eyes for 1 second, like a player before a penalty kick. When she opened them, the room had already gone silent. Her voice rose clear, rich, steady, and just as the first note touched the air, the Bentley's horn outside blared once, sharp and sudden, like a warning from the future. Every head turned. Benjamin's smile fell a little. Amara kept her eyes on him and drew in the breath that would carry the whole song. Then, with the entire restaurant watching, she opened her mouth wider and the first note hung in the air like magic. Amara's voice was soft at first, trembling, careful, like she was testing if the world would let her speak. But then it grew. It grew into something fierce and beautiful. The kind of sound that didn't just fill a room, it filled hearts. Her tone was pure, smooth as honey. The melody rose and fell like waves crashing on a beach. Every word carried emotion, pain, memory, pride. People stopped eating. Forks hovered mid-air. Waiters froze. A child in the corner whispered, Mummy, she sounds like the radio. Benjamin's smirk faded. He blinked, unsure if he was hearing a dream. Because the song, his favorite song, wasn't just rare. It was personal. It was a song his late mother used to sing when he was a boy. A song she hummed while braiding his hair in their small house in Enugu before success turned him into something else. He hadn't heard it sung right in 25 years, but this waitress, this ordinary woman in a white uniform, was singing it perfectly. Each line struck deeper than the last. Her voice trembled only when the lyrics spoke of loss, then rose again, like light fighting through clouds. Benjamin's friends had stopped laughing. One by one, they lowered their phones. By the time Amara reached the final chorus, even the air conditioner seemed to pause. And when she sang the last note, long, haunting, powerful, the restaurant erupted. Claps, cheers, gasps. Someone shouted, "Sing it again." Another yelled, "This is history." Amara stood still, breathing hard, her eyes shining but unsmiling. She didn't gloat, she didn't laugh. She just looked at Benjamin, the man who thought power made him untouchable. He couldn't move. The paper he'd signed lay on the table. His blue pen rolled slowly and fell to the floor. His friends looked at him, waiting for his reaction. Benjamin's throat felt tight. His pride wanted to laugh it off, to say it was a joke. But every eye in the room was on him. The waitress had just won his challenge fair and clear, and the witnesses, the people he'd called to mock her, were now her audience. One of the customers near the door said loudly, "Ogre CEO, she won. You said if she sang it, she becomes CEO. Abi, no be so." The crowd murmured in agreement. Benjamin's face darkened. He tried to smile, but it looked forced. "It was just recorded," shouted a young man holding his phone. "We all have it." Laughter filled the room again, but this time, not his laughter. For the first time in years, Benjamin Okonkwo, billionaire, founder, the man who never lost, felt trapped by his own words. He turned to Amara, who was now wiping her hands with her apron, calm and composed. You actually know the song," he said quietly. She nodded once. "My mother taught me," she replied. He swallowed hard. Do you even know what you've done?" Amara took the paper gently, picked up the pen from the floor, and wrote her name in the empty space beneath his signature. The ink looked bold and final. "I've just accepted your offer," she said softly. A gasp ran through the restaurant. Someone shouted, "She signed it!" Benjamin pressed his palm to his temple, half in disbelief, half in regret. His friends whispered to him, but he couldn't hear. He thought she would laugh and walk away. He thought she'd be scared. He thought this was another harmless show of power. But now the cameras were out. The video was spreading online in real time. He had made a deal in public, and she had won it. That was the first high of the day. The low came a few minutes later, when Benjamin, shaken but proud, stood up and extended his hand. "You'll ride with me," he said stiffly. "We're going to Bentech headquarters." The restaurant erupted again. People followed them outside. The street buzzed with shouts and phone cameras. A Bentley door opened. Amara hesitated, her hands trembling again, not from fear this time, but disbelief. The same car she once admired from the restaurant window now waited for her. She looked up at Benjamin. His face was unreadable. "Get in," he said. "A deal is a deal." The door clicked shut behind her. The ride through Victoria Island was silent. Only the soft hum of the car engine and the faint sound of her breathing filled the space. Amara's heart raced as the car cut through traffic. She stared out the window at billboards, flashing luxury brands, things she never imagined she'd touch. Benjamin sat stiffly beside her, jaw tight, his fingers tapping on the steering wheel. His pride was wounded, but something else tugged at him, curiosity. He finally broke the silence. "You studied music?" Amara shook her head. "Accountancy and business management." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "First class?" "Yes," she said simply. He blinked, speechless. Traffic lights blinked red, then green. The city roared around them. And for the first time in years, Benjamin Okonkwo didn't know what to say. They arrived at the tall Bentech tower glass, shining like morning water. Workers outside paused to greet their boss, unaware that the woman beside him would soon be their new CEO. Inside the lobby, whispers spread like wildfire. Cameras flashed. Benjamin led Amara to the elevator, his steps slower than usual. "Once we step out," he said quietly, "everyone will see you as the new CEO. That's what I promised." Amara looked up at him. "And you'll keep your word?" He met her gaze, and for the first time, his eyes softened. "I always do." The elevator doors opened to the top floor, a massive glass office overlooking Lagos. The view stretched over the lagoon, the island, the busy roads below. Benjamin turned to his stunned employees, who had already gathered after hearing the news. He cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said slowly, "meet your new CEO, Amara." Silence, then gasps, then applause. Some thought it was a prank. Some were too shocked to react. But when Benjamin handed her the signed paper, everything became real. Amara stood frozen, the city glowing behind her, the hum of applause growing louder. Her whole life, the hunger, the rejection, the loneliness, flashed through her mind like a movie. And standing before the man who once mocked her, she realized this was not revenge. It was destiny. Benjamin looked at her again, something new in his eyes, respect, and maybe the first spark of admiration. He said softly, almost to himself, "I never expected this." Amara smiled faintly. "Neither did I." The cameras clicked. The staff cheered. The whole building trembled with energy. And just as Amara was about to thank him, a voice from the corner said something that made everyone turn. "Sir, there's a problem." The board is calling an emergency meeting. Benjamin frowned. Why? The man hesitated. They think this. His promotion might break the company's legal structure. The room went quiet again. Benjamin turned back to Amara. Looks like your first day as CEO might be your hardest. Amara drew in a deep breath, her confidence rising. Then, let's get started. Is not the Rasmol and the wait in the bud. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, but the atmosphere that waited beyond was anything but calm. Inside Bentech's massive glass boardroom, 12 board members sat around an oval table. Their suits were crisp, their faces sharp, their whispers loud enough to slice through the tension. Benjamin led Amara in. Every eye turned toward her. Cameras flashed again from the hallway. The news had already broken online. Waitress becomes CEO after singing challenge. The headline was spreading like wildfire. Gentlemen, ladies, Benjamin began, his voice steady, though his chest burned with tension. I called this emergency meeting to confirm what you've all seen. I made a public deal, and I intend to honor it. The chairman of the board, an elderly man named Chief Adewale, leaned back in his seat, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. Benjamin, he said slowly, is this a publicity stunt or a scandal? Benjamin looked him straight in the eye. It was a challenge. She won. And I gave my word. Murmurs erupted around the table. One woman in a navy suit, Mrs. Bellow, raised her voice. You mean to tell us, sir, that this young woman, she gestured at Amara, is now the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company because she sang a song? Amara kept her gaze low. Her palms were sweaty, but she stood tall. Not just a song, ma'am, she said softly. A promise. That quiet confidence made everyone pause. Chief Adewale frowned. What qualifications do you have, young lady? Amara stepped forward. I'm a graduate of the University of Lagos, first class in accountancy and business management. I worked part-time through school. I know what it means to build from the ground. Her voice didn't shake. Her words carried the weight of years of struggle, and for a moment, even the harshest board member looked uncertain. Benjamin's chest tightened as he watched her. This woman, who had gone from waitress to CEO in a single afternoon, yet spoke with more composure than half the executives he knew. Still, the opposition was fierce. This will cause chaos in the stock market, one of the directors warned. Our investors will panic. Bentech cannot be run like a talent show. Another snapped. Benjamin raised a hand. Enough. His tone cut through the noise. I started Bentech with 10,000 naira and a laptop. People called me crazy, but I built it because someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it. Today, I'm doing the same for someone else. A heavy silence fell. Chief Adewale folded his hands. Benjamin, your impulsive challenges have caused problems before. But this one, he sighed deeply. This one might define your legacy. Benjamin looked over at Amara. Maybe that's the point. The old man studied them both, then nodded slowly. Very well. The board will respect your decision on one condition. She must prove herself in 30 days. If she fails to meet the company's quarterly growth target, your deal becomes void and you take back your seat. Benjamin turned to Amara. Do you accept? Amara's heart pounded. She remembered nights counting few old naira notes for transport fare, days going hungry just to afford books. She lifted her chin. I accept. And so did not. The boardroom buzzed again, half disbelief, half curiosity. Chief Adewale rose. Then it settled. Miss Amara, temporary CEO of Bentech. 30 days. He struck the gavel. The meeting ended. Benjamin and Amara stepped out into the hallway. Reporters were already waiting. Microphones, flashes, questions flying like arrows. Miss Amara, how does it feel to be the new CEO? Sir Benjamin, is this a real appointment or a publicity stunt? Is this the first time in Nigeria a waitress becomes a billionaire CEO overnight? Security guards pushed through the crowd, leading them to the lobby. Benjamin whispered, Don't answer. Not yet. They escaped into the elevator again. The doors closed, cutting off the chaos outside. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Amara turned to him. You didn't have to defend me, she said quietly. Benjamin looked at her. I wasn't defending you, he said. I was defending my word. But his tone softened as he added, and maybe something about you reminded me who I used to be. She smiled faintly. Before the suits and the headlines, he chuckled. Before arrogance became my favorite tie. They both laughed, the first shared laugh since the challenge began. When the elevator opened to the lobby, the building staff stood clapping. Some had watched the viral video, others had heard rumors, but they all smiled like they were watching a miracle. Amara bowed slightly. "Thank you," she said humbly. Benjamin leaned closer. "They already love you." That evening, Amara was given the CEO office, the same one she'd seen only on news features. She ran her fingers across the sleek desk, the city lights glittering through the tall glass wall. Her reflection in the window didn't look like a waitress anymore. But inside, she still felt like that girl who had sung to survive. She sat down, exhaled, and whispered, "Mama, I did it." Her phone buzzed. "Unknown number," she answered. "Hello? Amara," a calm female voice said. "This is Mrs. Bello." From the board, Amara straightened. "Good evening, Ma. I admire your courage," Mrs. Bello said. "But you must understand, these men won't make your 30 days easy. Some already plan to sabotage your first board presentation tomorrow. Be ready." The line went dead. Amara's pulse quickened. Sabotage. So soon. She opened the office drawer. Inside were Benjamin's files, company charts, and profit reports. She scanned them quickly. Numbers, departments, debts, margins. It was more complex than she imagined. But she saw patterns, flaws, missed opportunities, and ideas began to form in her mind fast, sharp, and clear. Just then, Benjamin appeared at the doorway, no longer wearing his proud smirk. "You still here?" Amara smiled faintly. "I have to be. I only have 30 days. He nodded, impressed. "I underestimated you." She looked at him. "Everyone does, until it's too late." Benjamin leaned against the doorframe. "If you need anything, ask. I'm technically your mentor now." "Technically?" she teased. He laughed. "Well, for now." They both looked out the window, the Lagos skyline shimmering like a field of stars. Somewhere far below, cars honked, people shouted, and streetlights flickered. Up here, in the silence of the glass tower, two lives had collided, one of power, one of struggle. Neither of them knew it yet. But this was only the beginning of something bigger, something that would test loyalty, pride, and love. Because downstairs, in the shadows of the parking lot, two board members whispered by a black SUV. "She'll fail," one said coldly. "We'll make sure of it." "Good," the other replied. "Benjamin needs to remember who really owns Bentech." The SUV door closed, the engine roared, and up in her new office, Amara whispered to herself, "Let them try." The morning sun poured through the glass walls of Bentech headquarters, painting the office floors in streaks of gold. But beneath that calm light, war was brewing. Amara stood in front of the boardroom mirror, straightening her blazer. She wore confidence like armor, though her heart pounded against her ribs. Today was her first official board presentation as acting CEO. Her first chance to prove she wasn't a fluke, a joke, or a viral moment that would fade away. She opened her laptop and rehearsed her slides again. Numbers, graphs, future projections. Her ideas were fresh, realistic, and bold. She had spent the entire night analyzing company data, identifying where profits leaked and how to plug them. But she didn't know what awaited her inside that boardroom. Downstairs, Benjamin was in his own office, watching the live feed of the board meeting from a hidden camera. He wanted to see how she'd handle the pressure without interfering, to see if the woman who sang her way into his life could lead a billion-dollar company through fire. When the meeting started, all 12 board members were seated. Mrs. Bello gave Amara a small nod of encouragement. The others didn't even hide their skepticism. Chief Adewale sat at the head of the table, his fingers steepled. "Miss Amara," he said in his slow, thunderous tone, "you have exactly 30 minutes. Convince us that you're not just a story trending online." Amara smiled politely. "Thank you, sir. I don't need 30 minutes. I only need truth." A few murmured chuckles rippled around the table. She ignored them and clicked to the first slide. "Bentech," she began, "has the potential to lead Africa's digital transformation. But for the past 2 years, our growth rate has dropped by 17%. Not because of the economy, but because of outdated models and internal waste." The murmuring stopped. All eyes turned to her. Amara continued, her tone firm. "You pay for consultants who do what your own teams can do better. You spend millions on executive retreats while cutting down employee welfare. And most shocking, she tapped her screen, you've ignored new government contracts worth billions simply because no one wanted to read the fine print. Gasps filled the room. Chief Adewale frowned. How do you know all this? Amara looked him squarely in the eye. Because I read every document that was supposed to be your job to read. For the first time, the boardroom fell silent, not out of dismissal, but respect. But then, just as she was about to show her solution slides, the screen flickered. Static. Then darkness. Her laptop froze. Her backup drive blinked red. A loud hum filled the speakers. Amara's stomach dropped. Someone had tampered with her system. Whispers erupted immediately. Did she even prepare properly? Typical amateur mistake. This is why emotions shouldn't run companies. Chief Adewale shook his head slowly. This presentation is over. Amara's breath caught in her throat. Please, sir, give me a moment. But before he could reply, Benjamin's voice boomed from the doorway. Wait! Every head turned. He walked in, tall, calm, his navy kaftan glinting faintly under the light. His presence alone silenced the room. I installed that system myself, he said. And I know when it's being hacked. Someone tampered with it. Gasps. Confusion. A few guilty eyes flickered toward each other. Benjamin turned to Amara. Do you have a printed copy? She nodded quickly and handed him a folder. He flipped through it, impressed. She found 3 profit leaks my finance team missed. If she hadn't, this company would have lost another billion by next quarter. Then his gaze swept over the table like a storm. If any of you think sabotaging her will protect your power, think again. The last person who underestimated me lost their shares. The tension thickened. No one spoke. Benjamin dropped the folder on the table. Continue, Amara. She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and continued this time with nothing but her voice and her printed pages. Her words were sharp, her numbers precise. She didn't stumble once, and by the time she finished, the silence that followed wasn't mockery. It was awe. Mrs. Bello was the first to clap. Slowly, firmly. Then others followed. Even Chief Adewale nodded. Impressive, he said, though his tone still carried caution. But this is only your first battle, Miss Amara. The war is 30 days long. Amara smiled faintly. Then I'll win 30 battles. Benjamin's lips curved into the smallest grin. You remind me of someone I used to be, he whispered as they walked out. Outside the boardroom, cameras flashed again. Reporters surrounded them. Miss Amara, how did you turn the meeting around after the system crash? Sir Benjamin, are you supporting her publicly? Benjamin looked at Amara and said clearly for all to hear, she doesn't need my support. She has my respect. That sentence made headlines by afternoon. By evening, Amara's picture was everywhere, times the waitress who won the boardroom, war. But beneath the glitz of media praise, something darker brewed. Inside a dim lounge, 2 floors below, 2 men from the board sat with whiskey glasses. She embarrassed us, one hissed. That girl needs to go. And Benjamin is falling for her, the other said bitterly. That makes it worse. If she stays, he loses focus, and we lose control. The first man leaned in. Then we'll make her fail publicly. The next project launch is next week, right? A slow grin spread across the second man's face. Perfect. We'll leak her proposal to the competition. Let's see how she explains that. That night, Amara sat by her office window, the city lights twinkling like 1,000 promises below. She had survived her first test, but her chest still felt tight. She picked up her phone and dialed her best friend, Chioma. Amara, Chioma squealed. I saw you on TV. Babe, you're trending. Amara laughed softly. It doesn't even feel real. You better enjoy it. Do you realize you're the most searched person in Nigeria right now? Amara smiled, but her eyes lingered on the reflection of the city skyline. Chioma, sometimes I wonder if I can really do this. These people are powerful. Powerful people get shaken when truth walks in, Chioma said. And Amara, you are truth. Don't forget that. Amara blinked back tears. Thank you. Just as they ended the call, a soft knock sounded at her door. Benjamin stepped in. His tie was loose, his eyes tired. He looked human, not like the untouchable billionaire everyone feared. I wanted to say congratulations, he said quietly. You were brilliant today. Amara smiled. Thank you. But someone tried to destroy that presentation. He nodded grimly. I know. And I'll find out who. For a moment, they just stood there, the city light between them. The tension slowly melting into something softer. Benjamin sighed. When I made that challenge, I didn't know I was giving away my company to someone who'd make me proud. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. Respect, admiration, and something that felt dangerously close to love. But before either could speak, Benjamin's phone buzzed. He looked at the message, his expression darkened. What's wrong? Amara asked. He turned the screen toward her. It was a news alert. Bentech confidential project files leaked to rival company CEO Amara accused. The world seemed to tilt. Amara's breath hitched. What? That's not true. Benjamin's jaw tightened. I know. But they won't care about the truth. They'll care about the headlines. Outside, the city lights flickered like warning signals. The war had just begun. By morning, Lagos had already chosen its side. Bentech's new CEO leaks trade secrets. Waitress turned boss, accused of corporate sabotage. Benjamin Okonkwo's reckless bet ruins his empire. The headlines were everywhere on TV, on Twitter, on the lips of taxi drivers and market women. Amara's face flashed across every screen. The once celebrated miracle CEO, now painted as a fraud. Inside Bentech headquarters, the atmosphere was thick with whispers. Employees who had cheered for her just days ago now avoided her eyes. Amara kept her chin high, but inside, her world was breaking. Amara, tell me this isn't true. She stood up quickly. I didn't leak anything. I swear it. He slammed his phone on the desk. A report glowed on the screen. The documents came from your system, your login. Someone used your account at midnight. Her stomach turned cold. That's impossible. I was at home. Benjamin ran a hand over his face, torn between anger and disbelief. The board is demanding an emergency suspension. They want to remove you before the stock crashes. Amara felt the room spin. Benjamin, please. You know I wouldn't. I want to believe you. He cut in. But you need to prove it before they destroy you. Tears welled in her eyes, but she swallowed them down. Then give me 24 hours. Just one day. Let me find the truth. Benjamin hesitated. His voice softened. You have 12. He turned and walked out, leaving her in silence. Downstairs, the board meeting had already begun. Chief Adewale presided over the table like a judge at a public trial. This incident, he announced, has cost us 2 international contracts. Investors are panicking. We must act swiftly. Mrs. Bello tried to intervene. We don't have full proof yet. The proof, Adewale snapped, is in the system logs. She is careless, a threat to our stability. One of the men smirked. I warned you, a waitress doesn't belong in a boardroom. The others murmured in agreement. A door opened. Amara walked in, her steps firm despite the fear swirling in her chest. Then let me defend myself, she said calmly. The room fell silent. Adewale raised an eyebrow. You have 10 minutes. Amara nodded. That's all I need. She placed a small flash drive on the table and connected it to the projector. The screen flickered to life, showing security footage from the IT department. The timestamp read 11:48 p.m. On screen, a shadowy figure entered the server room, swiped a card, and logged into the system. The figure wore a cap and hoodie, but as the video zoomed in, a familiar watch glinted on his wrist. Gasps filled the room. It was one of the board members, Mr. Lawson, the same man who had mocked her on her first day. Amara's voice didn't shake. I couldn't sleep last night, so I came to the office early. I found this footage after checking the server logs myself. And then he whirsed, "Oh, Mom." Lawson's face turned pale. This is a setup. You forged that video. Amara turned to Benjamin, who had just walked in. Sir, you installed those security cameras yourself, right? Benjamin's eyes narrowed. Yes, and only I have the master key. He looked at Lawson. So how did you access it? The room exploded in murmurs. Mrs. Bello slammed her pen on the table. Enough games. This is proof. Chief Adewale's face hardened. Mr. Lawson, you're suspended effective immediately. Lawson's jaw tightened. You'll regret this, he hissed before storming out. The board fell silent. Benjamin looked at Amara this time not as her mentor, not even as the man who'd once mocked her, but as someone who finally saw her strength. He spoke quietly, but every word carried power. Gentlemen, The woman you tried to humiliate just saved this company again." Mrs. Bello smiled, "And exposed corruption in less than 2 weeks." The board clapped slowly, uncertainly at first, then louder. Amara exhaled shakily. Her legs trembled, but her spirit stood tall. Chief Adewale rose from his seat, voice deep and measured. "Miss Amara, I owe you an apology. I doubted you. But today, you've proven that leadership isn't about background. It's about courage." He extended his hand. "The board votes unanimously to confirm your position as permanent CEO of Bentech." The applause that followed filled the entire building. Benjamin watched her pride gleaming in his eyes, the kind of pride that burned warmer than any victory. Later that evening, the office was quiet. The city outside glowed orange and gold as the sun sank behind the lagoon. Amara stood by the window again, watching the skyline that had once felt unreachable. She touched the glass lightly, remembering her mother's voice. "When the world wants to shame you, sing." And so, softly, she did. The same song that had changed her life echoed through the empty hallways, gentle, beautiful, free. The storm that once threatened to destroy Amara had finally passed. Her name was cleared, the truth was out, and Benjamin had stood by her through it all. In the weeks that followed, the tension between them began to shift from quiet admiration to something deeper, warmer, and unspoken. They started spending more time together. At first, it was business-long meetings, board reviews, late-night strategy sessions. But slowly, those moments began to stretch into laughter, shared meals, and conversations that went far beyond company profits. Benjamin would call her at odd hours, pretending it was about a report, only to end up talking about music, family, and life. One evening, after a successful investor presentation in London, they found themselves dining in a rooftop restaurant overlooking the glittering skyline. The air was cool, the city lights danced like stars, and for the first time, Benjamin allowed himself to be human. No titles, no arrogance, no pride. He watched her talk about her dreams, how she wanted to build schools for orphans, how she believed talent needed opportunity, not connections. He smiled quietly. "You know," he said, "you talk like someone who's already changing the world." Amara laughed softly. "I'm just doing what I can." "A very 5. He leaned forward. "No, Amara, you're doing what most people only dream about." Their eyes met, and something passed between them, the kind of silent understanding that doesn't need words. From one dinner to another, one flight to the next, they became inseparable. Together, they signed multi-million-dollar contracts in Dubai, pitched new innovations in Berlin, and represented Bentech at global tech summits. Each time they stood side by side, people whispered about the billionaire and the former waitress who had become partners in business and perhaps something more. Back home, the headlines changed again. Bentech's power duo, the CEO, and her mentor take the world stage. But beyond the fame, their connection grew deeper. Benjamin found himself admiring not just her intelligence, but her heart, the way she treated every employee with respect, how she still ate lunch with the cleaners, how she donated part of her salary anonymously to sponsor students. He had once mocked waitresses. Now, he loved one. That night, after a long board dinner celebrating Bentech's record-breaking year, Benjamin asked Amara to walk with him on the company's rooftop terrace. The city spread below them, lights, life, and movement. The breeze was gentle. Amara turned to him, smiling. "You're quiet tonight." He took a deep breath. "Because I'm thinking." "About?" He faced her fully. "About how wrong I was." She frowned slightly. "Wrong?" He nodded. "When I met you, I thought I was the smartest person in any room. I thought waitresses were people who gave up on ambition. I thought humility was weakness." Amara said nothing, just listened, her eyes soft, waiting. Benjamin took another step closer. "But you proved me wrong. You showed me that true strength isn't in how loud we speak, but in how we rise after being looked down upon. You've turned Bentech into something even I couldn't imagine, a global force." He hesitated for a heartbeat, then smiled. "And you turned me into a better man." Amara's eyes shimmered. "Benjamin," but before she could finish, he slowly went down on one knee. Her breath caught. He reached into his pocket and brought out a small velvet box. Inside, a diamond ring glowed softly under the nightlight. "Amara," he said, his voice trembling with sincerity, "I never knew a waitress had a story. I never knew a waitress could be this brilliant." You've built Bentech higher than I ever dreamed. Please, marry me, and let's build this giant company and our lives together." For a moment, all she could do was cover her mouth, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You really mean it?" she whispered. He smiled. "For the first time in my life, I mean every word." Her answer was simple. "Yes, Benjamin. Yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger as the Lagos skyline sparkled behind them, and the wind carried their laughter into the night, the same wind that once carried a waitress's song into a billionaire's heart. 2 months later, the wedding took place on a quiet Saturday morning. It wasn't a grand royal event, but it was beautiful, filled with sincerity, joy, and blessings. Amara wore a white gown, laced with gold patterns that shimmered in the sunlight. Benjamin, in a cream-colored agbada, couldn't take his eyes off her. Even the media couldn't stop talking. From waitress to wife, the love story that broke the internet. But to Amara, it wasn't about fame. It was about gratitude that life could take the most humiliating moment and turn it into destiny. Together, they turned Bentech into one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Africa, expanding into robotics, renewable energy, and software innovation. Their names became symbols of resilience and transformation. And yet, Amara never forgot where she came from. Months later, during a youth tech conference in Abuja, Amara stood on a grand stage wearing a simple Ankara jacket over her suit. The hall was packed young entrepreneurs, reporters, students, and CEOs from across the continent. Benjamin sat proudly in the front row, watching with love in his eyes. Amara stepped up to the microphone. The lights dimmed, and her voice carried through the hall calm, graceful, and full of truth. "I was born an orphan," she began. "I grew up believing education would be my escape. I graduated first in my class, but no one would hire me because I had no connections. So I became a waitress not because I was lazy, but because I refused to give up." The hall went silent. Every ear leaned in. Then one afternoon, a billionaire came to the restaurant where I worked. He tried to humiliate me in front of everyone. He said, "If you can sing my favorite song, you'll become the CEO of my company." Soft laughter rippled through the crowd. "I sang," Amara continued, smiling, "not because I wanted a company, but because I wanted to remind myself that no one decides my worth. These no pound some of what this come of roamed, and they won to the cope at first." Her voice thickened with emotion. That moment changed everything. It took me from a tray in my hand to a boardroom table, from being invisible to leading a team of thousands. And the man who once mocked me became my greatest supporter and the love of my life. Benjamin stood up, clapping slowly. The crowd followed, rising to their feet in thunderous applause. Tears filled Amara's eyes as she looked at him. "The truth is," she said, her voice trembling, "every dream, no matter how small, deserves a chance to sing." She continued, "Never let your background define your destiny. You don't need wealth, or a surname, or a connection. Just faith, courage, and a voice that refuses to be silenced. Never mock the small beginnings of anyone. Because sometimes, the waitress you laugh at today might be the CEO signing your paycheck tomorrow." The hall erupted in applause. As Amara stepped down from the stage, Benjamin reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined, their smiles soft and knowing. Two lives that once collided in humiliation now walked side by side in love, building a legacy the world would never forget. The lights shone brighter. The applause grew louder, and as Benjamin joined her on stage, holding her hand, the audience witnessed not just success, but a story that had come full circle, a story that began with humiliation and ended in love, legacy, and grace. And somewhere deep in her heart, Amara heard her mother's voice again, whispering through the noise of applause. "When the world wants to shame you, sing." And she did, in boardrooms, in conferences, and in life. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.